Things aren't always as they seem. It's 4 a.m. on a Saturday. You told yourself you wouldn't cook your sleep schedule, but now you're here, lost with the traces of time. You don't know it now, but it would have probably been best for you to go to bed while you still could. You find your late night comfort in a VR headset. There's only a few games in your library, most of them being free. It's too quiet in the house for Beat Saber, and Rec Room shut down. So there's really only one more option.
Hey,
Oh, hey, what's up?
nothing much. Trying to be friends or something?
Sure. What game do you want to play?
We could just chill here for now.
You don't know it now, but the person you just met is AM5J, a man who has been doxxed more times than you can count, a member of a cult, G59 Bandits, and someone who is tied to the death of a 15-year-old girl. And you're about to be a victim of his act. The problem? You're also just a 15-year-old girl. But, you know, things aren't always as they seem. I'm sure if I were to ask you what some of your favorite hobbies were, you could tell me a few. Reading, sports, video games, hell, even watching this video. I'm sure no matter who you are, you have someone or something that means a lot to you. Now, if I were to ask you to explain what that something means to you on a very deep and personal level, do you think you could give me an answer? Now, whether you said yes or no, by no means would it be a short answer. So please bear with me as I try to explain the meaning of this question. This is Savannah, and just like everyone watching this, and all the 117 billion people who have ever walked this earth, she has thoughts, feelings, and emotions. But also a story. And hers starts on VR chat, when she was just 9 years old. VR chat is one of the biggest social games on the market, harboring a massive community of over 1.3 million active players per month. And Savannah is just one of them. And while I understand VR chat does not have the best reputation when it comes to their community, Savannah was still able to find so much beauty in it despite everything wrong with it. You see, Savannah never really had the best home life, and while we don't know what happened exactly, it's clear that it was falling apart, and very broken. And, you know, when home becomes a strange place, you look for refuge elsewhere. And VR chat felt so real, when nothing in her real life did. So when I ask you to find meaning in the things that you enjoy, you need to understand that however you feel about it, Savannah is right there with you, holding it close to her with every breath. And I get it. I understand what it's like to hold a game so close to you because it's an escape from a harsh reality. She would spend hours on this game, meeting new people every day. In fact, that's the one thing she loved so much about it. But there was a problem. Savannah was young, around 13 to 14 at the time, and eventually she started realizing that the moment people found out how old she actually was, they would start treating her differently. Conversations would change, and others would just completely ignore her. And for someone who already felt so invisible in real life, that feeling hurt. So Savannah started lying about her age. Now, by all means, Savannah was not perfect, because obviously that's not a good thing to do. But I also think it's important to understand why she was doing it. Savannah wasn't trying to manipulate people. She just wanted people to actually talk to her. She wanted to feel included, like she mattered to somebody. And unfortunately, that exact need for validation is what made her vulnerable. One of Savannah's favorite worlds on VRChat was a place called Optimized Box. Now, visually, this world is honestly nothing special, but that was kind of the point. People didn't really go there to play a game. They went there to socialize. And while Optimized Box may have felt like a safe place to Savannah, it also harbored a community of some of the worst types of people on the platform. Now, VRChat does genuinely have a good community, it's just they have a loud 10% that speaks for the 90%. And while everyone typically sees the 10% as predators, degenerates, or depraved people, there's an even smaller 1% of the 10 that are just monsters. And while Optimized Box being Savannah's favorite room may seem like a piece of pretty insignificant information, Optimized Box was one of those rooms that harbored a big part of the 1% I just mentioned. And unfortunately for Savannah, even with there being over 1 million people playing VRChat every month, she still had the unfortunate reality of meeting someone who was looking for people exactly like her. Someone who was looking for people who were emotionally isolated enough to become dependent on someone else. And eventually, one of those people Savannah would become emotionally dependent on was a guy named Bandit. At first, there wasn't really anything that immediately stood out about him. He was 19 years old and just overall a more confident person. He was the type of person that always seemed to understand her, and to Savannah, that attention meant a lot more than it probably should have. From this point forward, Savannah and Bandit would start talking more and more, with it eventually turning into a relationship. And from Savannah's perspective, things felt normal, maybe even comforting, because for the first time in a while, she felt seen by somebody. But what Savannah didn't realize was that Bandit already understood exactly what kind of person she was. He knew she was vulnerable, he knew she wanted attention, and most importantly, he knew she was willing to do almost anything to avoid the feeling of abandonment again. Bandit was also fully aware that Savannah lied about her age. After all, she didn't exactly hide it very well. But he didn't care. If anything, it almost seemed as if it made him more interested. And things between them soon started to cross boundaries that should never be crossed between a 19 and a 13-year-old in the first place. Now from the outside, this probably sounds like another weird online relationship. But the deeper Savannah got involved with Bandit, the more things started changing. Their conversations became more manipulative. He would make her feel like she constantly had to prove herself to him emotionally. And over time, Savannah became dependent on his approval. And while, yes, this is what Savannah wanted, this would lead to a long line of abuse that Savannah would have to suffer through. But Bandit was really good at making it feel so real for quite the time. For a period, Savannah actually felt loved and seen. Things just felt normal. At least for now. Because there's something I haven't been telling you about Bandit. You see, while Savannah was using VRChat to escape reality, Bandit was using it to look for people exactly like her. People who he deemed emotionally unstable enough to become dependent on him. Because Bandit wasn't just another guy on VRChat. He was part of a cult within VRChat named G59 Bandits. Now, the way Bandit recruited people into this cult was actually pretty simple. He would emotionally attach himself to vulnerable people, gain leverage over them, and slowly make them feel trapped. And without even realizing it, Savannah was already being pulled into it. Because with Savannah's and Bandit's relationship already being pretty explicit, Bandit was gaining more and more leverage over her by obtaining these interactions. Now, by this point, Bandit had become one of the most important people in Savannah's life. So, when he pushed boundaries, Savannah tolerated it. When he started asking more from her, she complied because losing his validation felt worse than what he was asking her to do. Eventually, things escalated to a point where Savannah was hurting herself for his approval, and even changing her Discord username to Bandits Good Girl. And the worst part is, Savannah genuinely believed he cared about her. So can you tell me a little bit about what VR chat meant to you?
I played that game since I was like 9. Then I stopped playing. Got back when I was 13. I was kind of like raised by people. I don't know. My family is a piece of shit, so I guess it kind of meant a lot to me because I could do so much on there and meet so much different people, and it felt real at that moment because nothing else did in my life. So I clung on to a whole bunch of people, and then I ended up beating Bandit. I'm pretty sure it was just, I was like in a random world in VR chat, and I was bored. I wanted someone to talk to, so I just walked up and talked to someone. I don't really remember, but I'm pretty sure I wasn't really involved in stuff like that. Because there's other groups like that on like VR chat, but at that moment I wasn't in anything. And I was like 14, so I was just like kind of curious and just, you know, talking to people.
So whenever you met him, like, did he just seem like a normal guy? Like, was it obvious that he was in a cult?
Yeah, I mean, you can just tell. I mean, well, at that time I couldn't tell, but probably like now I could. I don't know. People like that just make like jokes to be your friend. Like they just make weird jokes, and I don't know.
Okay, so how did like yours and Bandit's relationship escalate?
Well, I was going through stuff at that time, so I was like really desperate to find someone to talk to and comfort me. So I was like kind of like all over him, I guess, and I don't know, he wanted to just start doing, I guess, cool stuff or whatever, so I didn't really say no.
And if you don't mind, how did they get you to hurt yourself?
At that time, again, I was going through stuff. I really wanted someone to love me, and he kind of made it in a way where, oh, a girl does this, she loves me or something. So I did it, and I didn't think about it. And of course, because I was young, I wouldn't do that now. But he had said that. So I was like, okay. I guess he kind of pressured me into it too. I think his group, there's like at least 4 people who kind of pressured me into doing it. Because at first I didn't want to, but you know, you say how a guy, like, he wants to do something with you, and he's like, oh, come on, just this once. Like, you know, kind of like that. They were kind of... So I just did it and got it over with, and it was just done. So it felt like I was begging for someone to love me. And in order to do that, I just had to listen. But I don't know.
It's kinda sad to know that just a bit ago, Savannah was just a normal kid on VR chat, looking for an escape. She was just looking to make friends like any other normal kid. She never wanted to be extorted within the game, and she never wanted to become involved in some cult. She just wanted to be seen. But we need to question why Bandit is even doing this in the first place, because surely there is some meaning behind his actions. Surely we can't just boil it down to him being a degenerate looking to harm people. Surely Bandit is a part of something bigger here. So, you know what, let me do a bit of foreshadowing for you. There is a bigger picture at play here. Bandit is a part of something much greater than just G59 bandits. And Savannah's story has actually just started. Because what you've just heard is what I would call the tip of the iceberg. Because Savannah, as well as you watching this video, have yet to learn what the calm is, and what this means to Bandit. So, what is the calm? And what does it mean to Bandit? Well, let's start with the first question. The COM is an internet criminal organization that consists of an entire network of other criminal communities. And that was probably pretty confusing, so a really good way to conceptualize what the COM is by comparing it to Coca-Cola. Now, we all know Coca-Cola as a drink company, but Coca-Cola doesn't just stand alone. If you take a look at this chart, you can see that Coke actually owns a whole portfolio of other companies that all ultimately funnel back into the parent brand. And when you compare that chart to the one I put together for the COM, the resemblance is pretty striking. The only difference is that what would be Fresca for Coca-Cola would be G59 Bandits for the COM. So if you really think about it, there are many other communities out there, all serving the COM. And when I say communities, I mostly mean cults. This is what Bandits' true intentions are. Any extortion happening within G59 Bandits is actually happening within the COM. And if you really think about what that means, then everything that was happening to Savannah suddenly becomes a lot more disturbing. Because Bandit wasn't just manipulating vulnerable girls for fun. He was doing it as part of a much larger culture that normalized this type of behavior. And one of the biggest inspirations for cults like G59 Bandits was a cult known as 764. And just in case you don't know what 764 is, recently the FBI classified it as a Tier 1 terrorist organization. And that's because people within 764 would actively search for vulnerable minors online in hopes of obtaining explicit material or emotional leverage over them. Because once they had that leverage, they would use it to push their victims further and further into abuse. And the more a victim gave them, the more power they had over them.
I go by Santiago online, and I kind of just a independent investigator inside of these communities. So what a lot of people need to understand is this sort of process is very meticulous. They have like an actual extortion handbook. They will search around to compile at-risk users who explicitly dispose like sort of their mental health struggles, or people kind of online who have that, oh, I wish I experienced some sort of love. They're just kind of lonely people online. And then from then, you know, that's where the first phase, I guess I like to call starts, like that sort of friendship phase. While posing as a friend, a lot of these perpetrators will silently collect like personally identifiable information from names, family members, like addresses, school locations, anything like that. Something which can be used to identify these people further and eventually be used as leverage to blackmail. And meanwhile, through this whole phase, it's meant to build trust with these people. Essentially, after that, they try to step up the relationship even more. And where stuff really goes wrong is when, especially in that sort of romantic sort of sense, which is where a lot of this does eventually go to. That's kind of the goal of the perpetrator, is to get some sort of explicit imagery out of them. Then everything, you know, starts to unfold from there. You begin to transition into this exploiting phase, which I like to call it, where after they get that initial damn content, they can use that plus the personally identifiable information which they gathered beforehand to extort the person. And then now basically the switch flips and it's, you're going to send more things, otherwise I am going to dox you or swat you. Furthermore, they get more and more content to further leverage with you. So it's hard for these victims because the more content they demand out of you and the more that you give, they have more leverage against you. So that eventually just becomes such a mountain and it's impossible to get out of. And that's the point. They try to make it impossible to get out of. So as they get all of this content to further leverage, eventually they'll ask for more extremes. They'll ask for self-harm. They'll ask for, you know, I mean, unfortunately, there's like siblings or like killing pets, really dark stuff. And stuff gets really, really bad.
Now, if a victim tried to leave 764, members of that cult would allegedly harass them or even threaten them. But again, this cult was all about attaining leverage, so a lot of these cults actually had very private information on the victims, and they would go as far as exposing that information or even going after friends and family members. In some cases, even report swattings and very violent intimidation tactics. Now, obviously, this is a very simplified explanation of what 764 is, but after hearing that, you can probably start understanding what Bandit was actually doing to Savannah. Because eventually Savannah became aware that she wasn't just dealing with a manipulative relationship anymore. She was connected to a much larger community of people who all normalize this behavior. And the abuse would continue. Because Bandit now had her exactly where he wanted her. Bandit would introduce Savannah to a girl named Cherry. And at first glance, this seems innocent enough. But Cherry was introduced to Savannah with precise calculation by Bandit. You see, Cherry and Bandit were extremely close with each other, and Bandit made sure Savannah knew that. He would openly talk about Cherry around her, and would spend a lot of time with her publicly. That made it very clear that the two had some sort of relationship. And because Savannah was already emotionally attached to Bandit, this completely destroyed her mentally. And she started to become jealous.
So, when I was talking to him, I think him and Cherry, I think it was a girl named Cherry, they were both doing most of the stuff, I'm pretty sure. Because I had a problem with her. She was like hella rude. And I lied about my age at first, then I told him, and he still continued to do stuff with me.
So, speaking about Cherry, how exactly did you meet her?
Cherry, she's some stupid ass. I think she was in a server. They had like a server or something. I was not in it. I didn't want to be a part of it. I guess I was just around Bandit, and he brought her around, and like the first time I met her, she called me, and she was just like, I can't. Cherry, I'm pretty sure she's a grown-ass woman. She's part of it. She was doing it too. And I don't think they're friends anymore. I have no clue, but I guess they were doing stuff with each other. Like, they liked each other or whatever. And she started saying stuff about me, like calling me a bitch and saying that something, I'm a minor or some stupid I don't know. And then, I don't know, they would make like child jokes and stuff. And then I tried to like tell someone what he was doing, and they just joked about it. So I kind of like got taken advantage of, and I kind of made me depressed, I guess, after.
But what Savannah didn't realize was that this was exactly what Bandit wanted. Because manipulation like this is rarely random. Bandit understood that if he made Savannah feel replaceable, she would try even harder to keep his attention. And according to the information I was given, Cherry was also aware of this manipulation and played into it alongside him. I'm sure it's not surprising that Bandit being a part of the 1% would also cause him to have other friends that were within that category. With that being said, it's obvious that G59 Bandits was not run alone by Bandit. He had people like Cherry who were there to extort people with him. And while Bandit was using his friends to obtain more leverage over Savannah, Savannah didn't really like that all that much. But there wasn't much he could really do about it. So Savannah would look for friends within the comm that seemed to be in a similar situation as her. Because of this, Savannah would run into a girl named Senna, who seemed to be also suffering from Bandit's actions. And on the surface, you'd think that these two would get along. They were the same age, and whether they knew it or not, they were going through an extremely similar situation. But that was never gonna happen, because Bandit made sure of it. He kept them at each other's throats, competing for his attention, never letting either of them get close. So, yes, while Bandit was using Cherry to gain leverage over Savannah, he would also use Savannah's own friends to get even more. Senna was already very close to Bandit at the time of her meeting Savannah, because Senna was also hurting herself for him and doing pretty much whatever he asked. But Senna was a little different from Savannah, because unlike Savannah, Senna wasn't only connected to Bandits. She was deeply involved within the comm itself. And her struggles went much further than just self-harm. So yeah, I guess to start out with, how did you meet Senna?
I started playing VRChat in January of last year, and I made a friend group, and I met Senna through mutual friends that I have. And at this time, she was introducing herself as a 20-year-old, and me and her became really close really fast.
Could you tell me a little bit about what VR chat meant to Senna?
For her, it was her escape. She wasn't happy at home. She felt alone all the time. And she really didn't have that many friends. And so VRChat was her escape to make friends and to be a different person online, you know?
So you said she told you she was 20. Did you later find out that like she wasn't that age?
Yeah. So I was actually involved with her getting her real age exposed. So what happened was I was hanging out with her, and like a couple days later I realized I was unwanted, and I was like, what happened, you know? And then people started telling me that she was an age banger, that she was this and that she was that. And then the girl that like doxed her, she like started saying a bunch of stuff to me as well. And then I actually got her new username and I added her. And we ended up being friends again, and I was like, I understand you from a certain perspective, but it's not okay to do that. And she promised me she wouldn't age bait again.
So kind of at what point did you start realizing that Senna was a part of a cult, or the comm?
I kinda always knew, but like when I first started, I didn't know what time was until after Senna had gotten doxed, because I was directly involved with it myself. And then when I would hang out with Senna, I was also brought around people who were like really deep in calm, and
What would she tell you was like happening within the cults? Like, would she tell you anything about like VCs or anything?
after she got doxed the first time, I told her, I was like, hey, let's change your name on the platform and let's stay away from these people. And she said okay, and then by my mistake, I took her to an optimized box, and she got really involved again. And after that, she started getting like extorted a lot and doxed a couple times. And I helped her through each one. I would, she'd call me and tell me what had happened, or I'd be online and she'd join me and tell me what happened. But she got excluded like multiple times.
She just got taken advantage of by like so much people, bro. At first I just didn't like her because she reminded me so much of myself when I was younger, so I just really didn't want to be around her. But I thought about it and tried to help her, and then she just pissed me off because she just wouldn't take my help and she just wouldn't listen to anyone. So much people were trying, and yeah, and people kept telling her like, oh, you yourself, you need to do this, you need to do that. She just kept listening.
She told me it was starting to drain her really bad, and I told her that maybe she needs a break from VRChat, that it's not doing good for her. And she kept agreeing with me, but she never took that break. And yeah, she was just going downhill. Like, when I first met her, she was like this. She was very happy-go-lucky, and then into like the middle of our friendship, she started going downhill really fast.
Was she ever like interested in leaving at all, or could she like not just up and do that?
She left and was doing good a couple times. But something always brought her back to home. And I don't know exactly what that was, but something always brought her back. And I feel like that wasn't just completely her decision either.
Did she ever mention like getting swatted or like anybody going out of their way to harm her at all?
I know about her getting swatted a couple times. There was even a point where she handed over her PC to the police. They would tell her all the time to the point she moved. she ended up moving away from the house and stayed with her grandma for a while.
What were you like telling Senna throughout all this?
When she told me, when she brought it up in our chat, I said, it's good to have that escape, but sometimes you also have to be able to say, hey, this is also not for me, and figure out another way to help yourself. With the calm stuff, I told her that it's probably best if she leaves it alone. She really didn't like the advice that I'd give her because she didn't know what to get off for. She hated the idea of getting off for it.
So, now that we know what the comm was to Savannah, and who she met within it, we need to focus our attention on what was happening within G59 Bandits as a whole. At this point in the story, we've talked a lot about Savannah, we've talked about Senna, and we've talked a lot about this larger comm network. But we still haven't really broken down what G59 Bandits actually was at its core. So let me slow it down a bit and explain it properly. Because, I mean, from the outside, G59 Bandits doesn't look like much more than just a VR chat cult. But before we go any further, I want to be clear about something. Not everything inside these cults is visible. A lot of it is private, a lot of it gets deleted, and a lot of it only exists through fragmented evidence and testimonies. So what I'm about to say about G59 Bandits is really only based on patterns and interviews that are connected to this group or others like it. So with that being said, let's get into it. G59 Bandits at its core is operated through control, but long-term psychological control over its victims. And for the victim, it was never advertised as a cult. In fact, they were never even aware it was a cult in the first place, because it started as a friendship much like Savannah and Bandit. What we do know is that Bandit's Discord server was far from innocent, because once Bandit got close enough to people like Savannah and Senna, his ultimate goal was to get people in his server. Because that would unfortunately allow for him to centralize his victims in one space. But this would also allow for Bandit to make it seem like more of a community than just a relationship between one person. What we do know about Bandit's community is that he had a lot of people that ran it with him, much like Cherry mentioned before. But Cherry was not the only one, and while we don't know how many people ran Bandits exactly, it doesn't really matter. Because the point in having multiple people run it is so that victims feel more pressured into doing stuff. One of the ways Bandit would pressure his victims was by hosting public calls. Now, we'll dive more into what these calls actually look like a little bit later, but what you need to understand about these calls is that it would typically consist of someone like Savannah getting publicly pressured into harming themselves, or even others. But let's say a victim were to refuse. This would most likely end up in the victim getting publicly humiliated throughout the server. But what I find really weird is that the public humiliation usually consisted of some form of, oh everyone look at this, they refused our abuse. And it would work. Because whenever a victim didn't refuse and followed through with what they were being asked to do, they would also get posted throughout the server. But instead of shaming, it got glorified. This is blatant manipulation on a mass scale. But not only that, it made everyone in the server normalize this type of behavior, to where whenever a victim clearly didn't want to go through with something, that was literally frowned upon despite being right. But what is so important to understand is that communities like Bandits don't always rely on manipulation and force, because normalization is also a huge factor at play. At some point, Savannah and Senna got desensitized to hurting themselves, and it became very normal due to what was happening within the server. But if Bandit was so successful at normalizing this behavior, it makes you question what else he was trying to normalize. Because, I'll be honest with you guys, throughout my entire time doing YouTube, I've noticed that people like Bandit don't just stop and stay content with what they have. Bandit will always want more. And this is when a shift inside Bandit started to happen, because Bandit would start to raise his expectations. because he started to come to the reality that Bandits was not all he wanted it to be. It never felt as official as 764. And while all we know about Bandits is that it was a very manipulative community, we need to keep in mind that this was Bandits' biggest inspiration, and we can assume that they mimicked their behavior within their own community. I mean, 764 is well known for forcing their victims to hurt or even kill their pets or animals, or even going as far as starting mass fires in public or secluded areas. In fact, if you look up G59 Bandits on Google, we can find a literal video of someone starting a mass fire under their name. So this is why I think G59 Bandits wasn't super far off from 764. I'm sure just by saying that, I got the point across that there was nothing good happening within Bandit's server. It's sad to think that Senna was also just a normal kid playing VR chat at some point. But now that she's here, there's not much she can do. Of course, Senna is not the only person who is in this cult, because Bandit's Discord server consisted of hundreds of members. So whenever I'm sitting here and telling you about Savannah and Senna's story, you need to understand that at the same time of all of this happening, there were hundreds of others going through the exact same situation as them. And while all of this was happening to Senna, Savannah was still watching from inside the same server, still waking up every day giving everything she had to someone who saw her as nothing but a resource. It actually got so bad that Savannah kind of disappeared for a while without really saying anything. And even I'll admit it, that was a very bold move by her. I may not have mentioned it before, but Bandit did have her address, and he knew who her family members were, and not to mention the interactions they had. What Savannah did takes a certain type of desperation, but it kinda just got to the point where she didn't care. She was more exhausted than she was scared, and surprisingly after Savannah left, Bandit really didn't do anything about it, which is pretty weird considering who he is. Savannah disappearing also really didn't affect the server whatsoever. It just ran as usual. Bandit would continue the voice calls, and he would continue the manipulation. However, even then, it still never seemed to be enough for Bandit. It never mattered how much someone would hurt themselves, or what he got them to do on camera. He was never satisfied. He wanted more. And that something more was never really clear to him. Until it was. You see, 764 was Bandit's ultimate inspiration, and it went much deeper than just getting people to harm themselves and others. Because at the worst level, they would encourage or even succeed at pushing people to take their life. Live on call. And this was unfortunately what Bandit was wanting. And he was gonna achieve his goal, one way or another. We need to understand how exactly this is going to work, because Bandit's goal is not exactly something that's easy to do. Sure, 764 has had numerous cases where a person ended up taking their own life, but that is an established cult, and usually it takes months or even years of abuse for it to end up getting that far. And whether Bandit likes it or not, he's not exactly established like 764 is, but he sure as hell craved it. He's already gotten very good at manipulating people into harming themselves, and just so you understand how this really works on a deep level, here's how one of the calls would look like within G59 Bandits.
The damn scissors.
Okay, get your hair. It's chopping time.
Okay, if I do
5
this
inches.
and you
5
don't
inches.
send anything, I
Cut all of your ponytail off right now.
No.
Yeah.
Can I cut this much?
No. All of the ponytail.
I'm not cutting the entire ponytail, dude. I will cut this much.
Okay, let's press send.
No.
Oh no, should we press send?
Fine. No. This much, okay?
Go.
Start cutting. Chop, 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 chop.
Please just leave me alone.
Okay, I want you to take the hair that you cut off, right? I want you to put it in your mouth.
Are we good?
No,
Get a marker.
where's the marker?
I mean, this is just step one.
This right here is the foundation Bandit would work with. If he was really gonna get someone to commit such an act on camera, he would have to go 10 times harder than what you just saw. But the roots would stay the same. He wasn't exactly quite ready yet. So over the next few months, he would continue his server calls as usual, typically allowing them to get worse and worse over time, with that thought in the back of his mind, lingering. At the same time, Bandit was collecting more and more blackmail the worse these calls got, so it was also just giving him more and more leverage that he could use in order to achieve what he was desiring. However, he still had to choose between someone to carry this act out on, and unfortunately for him, he had options. Of course, there was Senna, but the problem with Senna is that if Bandit were to do such a thing to her, then he would lose her for good, and Senna was very loyal for him, so it may not be worth it for him. And not to mention, Savannah was gone. She left a while ago. So Bandit kind of found himself in a bit of a predicament here. Savannah was gone, and Senna was too valuable to Bandit. However, there was still one more option left. Cherry. And if you think about it, it makes perfect sense. Cherry was one, already very close to Bandit, in fact much closer than Senna and Savannah were, and she was also aware of who Bandit actually was and what he did. She wouldn't exactly expect him to turn on her, and even if he did, she was the type of person who seemed to be willing to go that far. Plus, he didn't really lose anything because he had many other friends that would just fill in her place. Even with knowing all this information, Bandit could also take a complete left field and target someone new. And even if Senna and Savannah didn't seem like an option, he has already gone very far with them already. So, what's one more step? Or what if he calls this whole thing off? After all, this is not a decision you can really ever come back from. But maybe he was already too far gone.
So, what happened was, they invited Anton to the server. He invited me. They dragged him to the VC, and I guess he decided to drag me, apparently. The VC. And I thought it was like a cool chill out server, but it ended up being whatever had happened in the VC. And yeah, basically what happened was they were pressuring her to do stuff, and I kept telling her not to. I kept trying to stop her from doing it, and she didn't listen to me because there's more people telling her to do it than people telling her not to do it. The guys were basically joking around and stuff, telling her to do it. They weren't even taking it seriously, they were just like telling her to herself and stuff, and they were just saying all kinds of like really mean stuff to her. They used stuff against her, like her getting, for an example, they used that against her. They had her address, her name and last name, all kinds of stuff on her, like that.
So whenever they were pressuring her, did it just start off as like just pressuring her into doing like smaller things, like mostly just like hurting herself, and then like did it kind of just escalate into like
It started out as that, and then it escalated, and she, I guess, refused to do something one of them said, and then they threatened her, and It's hard to talk about because I wish I didn't see it. But yeah, it escalated to something else, and then they pressured her to herself, and she went and did it. Because they threatened her.
Do you remember, like, what happened after that? Like, like, was there anybody else but her that was in the room? Or, like, just what happened, like, after?
So, what happened was after she did it, I wouldn't say she screamed, but she was more like crying when she did it. And her parents, came in the room after she had did it and found her there. And the people were joking around telling her parents, how does it feel to have a dead daughter? They like made memes out of it, started sending it around on the server and stuff. They tried telling her to do stuff, and things I remember her saying was she said she didn't want to do it, and they basically told her to do it or else they're gonna do something, basically.
And you said that you tried to, like, talk her out of it or just tell her to not do these things.
I tried to talk her out of it.
What were, like, did they react to that at all? Like, whenever you were trying to, like, help her, did they...
Yeah, they told me to be quiet and not to, like, help her or anything. But I didn't listen and I kept trying to help her. They kept trying to talk over me every time I was trying to help her and stuff, and that's what made it really difficult was the fact that they were talking over me and I was trying to tell her not to do it. It wasn't cool at all that they did that. They say they tried to make it so I'm not hurt, basically.
He did it. Bandit successfully got what he wanted. There's no coming back from this now. But, wait. Who was the girl?
Were you a part of the bandit group?
G59 Bandits?
Yeah, because
No, it was redacted that was a part of it. That's all I knew, and I'm not sure why redacted was a part of it.
From what I'm hearing, I'm not saying you made the girl off, obviously, but I'm saying from what I've been hearing, you were a part of it at one point, the group itself.
Not a part of it, but it was partnered up with when I had Anti at the time.
Yeah, I don't know, just from what I heard, you know, like I said, I'm not blaming you for the death, but you know, some people showed me a little bit of evidence of you bullying her with Bandit, not with the that you were bullying her, you know. I think like you should, if you did do something, you should own it.
Yeah.
I feel like again, I feel like there's still more you're probably not telling me, like just with your tone of voice. You're not really a good liar. That's how I feel. Maybe I could be wrong, but I do feel like you're lying about something. Not lying or hiding. Not lying. I do think you're hiding something or not fully saying anything.
Yeah. I did bully her because first it was dumb of me for doing it. I'm sorry. Give me a second.
Yeah, you bullied her. I knew you did. You just tone of voice.
I did bully her because Redacted did say to me that she was age baiting, so that's why I bullied her, and that's why I kind of took somewhat of a part of it.
So wait, the girl couldn't have been Cherry, because Cherry was never an age baiter. In fact, she was the same age as Bandit. Hold on. Where the hell is Savannah? She disappeared, but we never questioned where she went. Oh my god, it's all starting to make sense. Savannah didn't disappear. She died. She was the girl who was in the call. The reason Bandit didn't harass Savannah when she left is because she never did leave. Bandit killed her. Bandit didn't have anyone to harass. This entire time, Savannah has been dead. Bandit went a bit too far with this one, because with there now being a witness to all of this, information was about to become public. And it did. The person who was there for Savannah's death would come out with this, and a few YouTubers would cover it before me. In fact, I found out about this case from them. And from this point forward, Savannah has been presumably dead, and Bandit is still continuing what he's been doing. No one got justice, and a family was internally wounded from the actions of one individual online. But, hold on. There's no way this story ends here. Because who the hell did I interview at the start of this video? We need to rewind. So, speaking about Cherry, how exactly did you meet her?
Cherry, she's some stupid ass. I think she was in a server. They had like a server or some. I was not in it. I didn't want to be a part of it. I guess I was just around Bandit, and he brought her around. And like the first time I met her, she called me. And she was just like, I can't.
That's right. Savannah was never in G59 Bandits, meaning Savannah is still very much alive. I mean, not to break the fourth wall here, but I literally interviewed her for this video. So, who was the girl in the call? It couldn't have been Cherry, and it for sure wasn't Savannah.
I did bully her because Redacted did say to me that, oh, she was age baiting, so...
I made a friend group, and I met Savannah through mutual friends that I have, and at this time she was introducing herself as a 20-year-old.
Redacted did say to me that, oh, she was age baiting. And
she promised me she wouldn't age bait again.
It was Senna. So I kind of want to ask you about Senna's death. How like did you find out about that?
Okay, so we backtrack a little bit. About a month before she passed away, I had left people in the call because it started to drain me. The way it was hurt, and I didn't realize it until too late. But I told her, I was like, hey, I still want to be your friend, but I don't like the crowds you hang out with, so I'm going to distance myself. And she said that was perfectly okay, but she understood. But on her birthday, I joined and told her I loved her and stuff like that, and left, and that was the last time I spoke to her. I found out her mutual friends really found that she had passed away, and after that, I reached out to her and I sent my condolences, and I helped her aunt figure out what happened because she had questions as well. I helped her figure out what happened, and then I called one of my friends and I showed the video that was going on. In the video, she was talking, and she said something along the lines of, I left him, I don't know why, he hurt me, something like that, and she took a bunch of pills, like pills of pills, and I also saw one of the last messages she sent to somebody, and she texted someone and said, I'm officially a co-founder, and sent the video to them.
Do you know who she was talking about?
I'm not 100% sure, but from things I've heard and witnessed, I think it was a guy named Catboy. Back when I thought it was like, maybe it had all the details. I did my own research on that, and I talked to a couple people. I also interviewed them, and I was like, what happened? People do believe that it happened in a home, because the way she was speaking, it was weird. It was like it was scripted. Like, it didn't sound like her. So, people believe that she was extorted into doing it, and I don't remember the name of who it was, but I heard that someone went around bragging about getting Senna to take her life. And with her face, and she was holding it up, and she was talking for her. Then she handed came around to her leg, and she had a bunch of clothes laying on her leg, and she grabbed it by her clothes and started it out. And she was talking between swallowing.
Hold on. Things are still not adding up. Because at no point did this person who was very close to Senna at the time even mention bandits. In fact, it seemed like Senna was in a whole nother cult. And that's because she was. I haven't been completely honest with you guys. Senna was also never in bandits. You see, Senna was much more involved in the comm than Savannah was. If we refer back to whenever I was comparing Coca-Cola to the comm, we can see that there are more cults than just bandits, and Senna was in more than just one. Yes, the comm did end up being the death of Senna, but it happened in an entirely different cult than bandits. In fact, Senna was so involved in the comm that her best friend at the time couldn't even tell me how she got into it in the first place. Senna was so trapped within this endless cycle of abuse and extortion, to the point where we don't even know where her death occurred. And while I would love to dive into the cult that was the cause of Senna's death, we don't have much information on it other than who caused it. Yes, Senna was still harassed and extorted by bandits, but Bandit was not the one who caused her death. And ever since this death took place, Bandit as well as all of his friends would nuke the server and disappear due to the fear of there being a witness. And to this day, we haven't heard or seen from Bandits since. G59 Bandits presumably ceases to exist, and we can't really connect anyone to this death other than Bandit. At least, that's what I would say. Because that's what Bandits wants you to believe. They are still very much active, still covering up their tracks, but making new ones as we speak. And there is someone tied to this death, but the only way we're gonna have any chance at finding this girl and who was responsible is by going in ourselves.
Say to the world I'd die if we were falling apart. Going to work, smiling as we're falling apart. You lie to your friends, it's fine as you're falling apart. Soon giving in this time.
This investigation is unlike anything I've ever attempted before. From people literally covering up this death for Bandit at all costs, to a cult of minors exploiting other minors, to people pretty much just disappearing completely without a trace. G59 Bandits is really one of a kind, and like I said, it's unlike anything I've seen before. My investigation on Bandits started like any other. I thought it was going to be pretty easy to find them and infiltrate their cult, but I would be wrong, because I would soon start to come to the realization that I'm investigating a massive cover-up. Because the death that occurred within Bandits did not shut Bandits down, it only made them smarter, and much harder to actually find. Bandits will never allow for a witness to slip into their server again. If we're going to infiltrate Bandits, we need to start on VR chat, where their community is rooted from. When searching G59 Bandits on VR chat, we can find numerous groups all promoting a Discord server, and while this Discord server may not seem like an official Bandit server due to the name, almost every group is promoting it, and I'm willing to bet that this is just one of their many servers. This Discord server was interesting, because upon joining it, you're met with an application that you need to complete in order to enter, much like Bandit server. Now the reason this application is so interesting to me is because it's actually a way for the server to know who is real and fake. Because Bandits doesn't just let anyone in, they find their victims. So whenever you submit an application to join, they know you're not anyone who should be there in the first place. In fact, upon joining the server, my Discord account got banned almost immediately, making me believe they went out of their way to spam report my account in hopes of getting it deactivated. And not to say their application process doesn't work, because on the off chance that someone were to join, you're prompted with a question asking who invited you, meaning they have successfully found a way to keep the community secluded to only who they want within it. Unfortunately for them though, this did not stop me from accessing their server.
My time being played. My memory is pretty bad, but all I remember is that the server was kind of funky. What was super odd is that you would assume the Discord server was full of a bunch of weirdos sharing lore, but for the most part, it was just people were just normal. Now, I do have an assumption, and this is not a verified fact, but I think whoever invites these people more than likely attempts to recruit people and invite them to themselves, or they recruit people to invite their friends to also be manipulated. But of course, this is just an assumption.
If you were to get into the server via the application process, they have you submit proof that you're a real person to the owner of the server, whose name is Watson. Watson is actually pretty interesting, but we're going to get into him a bit later. Proof usually consists of your government ID or a picture of you holding up a piece of paper with the server name on it. However, when entering this server, something is bizarrely clear. Almost everyone here is underage. In fact, if you take a closer look at the server, you find out that most of the activity that happens within the server are just minors exploiting other minors. Watson himself isn't even of legal age. Now, that's not to say there aren't any adults in this server, but for the majority, it's mostly just minors. And in no way does that excuse the behavior within this server that appears to be part of Bandits in some way. For starters, this cult is very active within Roblox condos, which is actually very interesting because my last video was actually a deep dive into condos. And if you understood what these condos really were, then you would also understand that this is pretty scary. Because this would mean Bandits is not secluded to just VR chat. They could very well be preying on kids playing Roblox. But that's not even the worst it gets. Because Watson's server also has people within it who are involved in exploiting others online for money. And while this person, who we're going to be calling Adam, claims to only be looking for adults, due to the type of servers this person is in, I wouldn't necessarily find it crazy to assume that the intentions here are not exactly as innocent as they seem. This could also be another way of recruiting people into another cult. After all, in their bio, they do promote Discord servers of their own, and while I can't join these servers myself due to the links being expired, it could very well be more cults. Adam is also a very interesting individual, because despite him not having any roles that link him to being the owner of Watson's server, Watson still seems to keep him there, despite not liking him. I mean, Adam was publicly talking about enjoying watching girls hurt themselves, and when Watson called him out for it, there wasn't really any action that led to him getting banned. Whenever Watson was confronted about this, he stated that he can't just ban Adam because he can dox and term servers, so it was just better to leave him be. But what I find more sad is that Adam was also benefiting from this, because Watson was trading himself in order to stay on Adam's good side. I just find it absolutely crazy that despite Watson owning the server, he himself is also getting exploited. We still have no trace of Bandit in this server, and while being undercover in this server may have helped us understand how Bandits ran, I unfortunately don't think this is going to lead us to Bandits. If we go back to the VR chat group itself, we can find a list of users within this cult, and some of the accounts are interesting, to say the least. I'm sure it's not hard to recognize what all these accounts on screen have in common. First of all, none of them seem to have any type of avatar, giving the impression that all of these accounts were banned, or they're there for a purpose.
To me, a lot of these accounts that are listed as members just look like alt accounts that were either made for the group or like geeks. I think they do this in case they get banned for whatever it is they may be doing that goes against VR chat POS. For example, that one account called Nuke is probably made for something called nuking lobbies. Nuking lobbies in VR chat is like, It's like where you make an avatar that has an emote on the emote wheel, or like a hacked client that crashes people's games.
Now, we've spent a good chunk of this investigation inside the server, which appears to be connected to Bandits in some form. But like I said, there's no trace of Bandit being connected to the server. I mean, other than his VR chat accounts being in the group. And here's what I started noticing. Throughout my investigation on this server, I came to realize that this server is what Bandits wants you to believe what happens within their communities. Because from the outside, it does seem like a server with just a bunch of edgy teenagers. But this server is nothing but a cover-up from the real thing. Which kind of sucks because when you think about what's happening within this server, you can't help but think what's happening in the real one. So far, both of our leads to Bandits seem to be cover-ups. But it would be far from the last one. Because, believe it or not, Bandits did not stop here when it comes to covering up their actions. Because there's a guy I haven't told you guys about yet, for who the past year has been publicly covering everything up for Bandits. This is Anthony, otherwise known as AM5J, and I've been avoiding mentioning him throughout this video up until now. But he actually plays a very important role in the story, because he was actually in the call when that girl took her life. In fact, he was the guy who admitted to bullying the girl into doing it in part 1.
Yeah. I did bully her.
Anthony is someone who has thousands of hours online, much like Savannah. You see, Anthony lives in government housing, and pretty much does nothing with his life other than sit around and play video games. His two favorites are Halo and VR chat. I know it's a weird mashup, but Anthony started out playing Halo at a very young age. And this would eventually lead him to join something called the Halo Clan community. Now, from my understanding, the Halo Clan community is pretty much like GTA online roleplay servers, where you can like join groups and play games. I don't really know. But this is important because it's how Anthony would get introduced to the comm. He would also make a lot of his friends throughout the Halo Clan community, joining groups like Nemesis. Now my guess is that Anthony would find comm groups through Halo, and then slowly but surely got introduced to VR chat. Because VR chat's comm community is massive. And the reason I assume this is because Anthony would start getting into various VR chat groups, such as... I gotta pull these up, hold on. Just gonna scroll down a little bit and see what he's into. Goon Platoon, Puppy Girl Empire, Snuggle Bugs, Let Me Watch, We Love to Watch, Please Let Us Watch. Jofa Corner? Anthony got pretty inspired by these groups because he would end up making his own called Anti, which was pretty much an ERP group where he would host some pretty interesting, let's just say, parties.
When he made Anti, that was like one of his last servers that I known he made. When he made that, then he ran into the Bandits, and then he joined the Bandits. The Bandits and him, they server partnered, and then after a while, he ended up becoming a Bandit. In AM5J's server, what is it? Most of his staff team were minors. That's what I've been hearing. And he barely ID'd people in the NSFW chats, apparently. And there's been allegations of AM5J as well. But when I was friends with him, when me and Izzy were friends with him, obviously, we never seen him kids.
It's not exactly clear if Anti was a comm community at its core, or just a bunch of horny furries. But nonetheless, Anthony would start partnering with comm groups, one of which being Bandits. From what I've gathered, it seems as if Anthony was actually friends with Bandit, because their relationship wasn't just business. Now, whether Anthony was friends with Bandit before they partnered up, or if their friendship started because of that, we don't really know. What we do know, however, is that Anthony was high up in the ranks, because he was an admin for Bandits. It's clear that Anthony was involved in a lot of communities upon even owning some himself. But this actually created a huge problem for Anthony, because for some reason that, to this day, we still have no idea why he did this. During that call where that girl took her life, Anthony would invite someone from Nemesis to witness it. And the thing about Nemesis is that it's not even a comm group. In fact, it's quite the opposite. I know I didn't explain what Nemesis was because I was saving it for this part in specific just due to how baffling it is. Anyways, Nemesis is pretty much an online community that spends a lot of time catching online predators and exposing extortion on games such as VR chat. And Anthony was a part of Nemesis. That's right, the guy who was secretly extorting girls through VR chat was also actively a part of a group that dedicated so much time into taking down people like him. And that's why it baffles me so much that Anthony was this stupid enough to add someone from Nemesis to the call where they extorted that girl into taking her life. But in hindsight, this explained a lot about Anthony. What?
Recording?
Hey, what's up? Do you wanna read a line?
And in hindsight, this explained a lot about Anthony to the group because he had some strange behavior.
Dude, AM5J used to be in Nemesis. Like, he used to be a decent friend to us before we knew everything. We kicked him out because he was, like, really weird. Like, because he would always be really paranoid. Like, super paranoid for no reason. Changing his Discord. Like, that's another thing he used to do. He used to always, change his Discord name constantly and just say, yeah, I can't play VR for a while. We're like, why? He wouldn't explain why. And after a while, we just knew something was up, so we just kind of kicked him out of the group because he seemed really secretive and suspicious, you know what I mean? Paranoid. And I'm like, okay, well, you're only paranoid if you're doing something you shouldn't be doing.
Knowing how close Anthony was to Bandit, it raises a question. If we can't find Bandit through VR chat or any of his communities that he left behind, could we find him through Anthony? Well, in order to do this, we need to find out what Anthony is up to today, which wasn't really that hard to find. Our investigation into Anthony starts on Discord, where I was given his new account. And to my surprise, it was only a few months old, meaning Anthony still has the same behavior explained by Nemesis. But there was something really off about Anthony's Discord account. Why in the world does he have so many TikTok accounts? It almost seems as if he's selling these or something. Hey, that's because he is LUSHA. Huh? That's because he is LUSHA. Yeah, so Anthony does pretty much anything but get a job because he sells TikTok accounts with rare names to people in a Discord server called MLG. But Anthony selling TikTok accounts is by no means what I'm actually interested in investigating. It's his Discord server he runs the operation through, and mostly his behavior. Upon joining the server, I expected it to be something to do with the comm, but to my surprise, it was just a normal server. Well, normal is a bit generous, because despite this server not being a part of the comm at all, it still demonstrates some pretty disturbing behavior. And in order for us to understand, we need to get familiar with a few of the rules that Anthony himself put into place. Respect everyone. No harassment, racism, sexism, homophobia, or personal attacks. Keep it chill. No NSFW content. Keep everything safe for Discord TOS. No leaking/doxing. Sharing private info will result in a permanent ban. Now, if I were to ask you if these rules are here to actually serve any purpose, and are actually reinforced, would you think they are? I'm sure it's no surprise that they aren't. Because not only does Anthony constantly use slurs, he also has posted NSFW content himself, meaning rule number 1 and 8 are already broken. But if we take a look in his contest channel, we can literally find him doxing someone to his entire community, and while he claims that this person was a pedophile, he actually never provided any proof against this person, and just posted his number and socials like it was nothing. Anthony would go on to delete this dox a few days later, but I find it kind of ironic how he's acting like he hates predators and doxes them, while he himself is possibly one of them. I mean, he literally posted a screenshot of himself talking to someone and claiming that he may go to jail. Not to mention his absolutely horrendous voice messages.
I just... yeah, Shrek. Oh my god, Shrek is fucking my butt.
One thing about Anthony that has been a common occurrence throughout my investigation on him is that he is not exactly the smartest person out there. Because in his announcements, he would post a link to a website that promoted all of his socials. And upon further inspection, we can also find his YouTube channel where he publicly states that he is AJ, still in the comm, and has his entire full legal name as his email address. So if you had any doubts that AJ was actually Anthony, well, there you have it. He has successfully doxed himself. But not that it matters. I couldn't find any connections to Bandit in this server, and other than everything you witnessed above, it's kinda just a really shitty server. So I sent him a message posing as a private investigator working a case that could help him. And to my surprise, it worked. He opened up. Hey Anthony, just following up. Are you able to send what you have and answer a few questions? Can you send me what you have soon? Hey Anthony, just checking in to see if you're still down to send me what you have and answer a few questions. Hey Anthony, we really don't want to get law enforcement involved, but if we can't get what we need through just talking, then I'm gonna have to forward this to someone else, which I really don't want to do.
Is she like, is that her like actual docs?
To be honest, I don't know. I kind of just blocked everything. I didn't know she was still around. To be honest,
Well, people are saying that she's dead, that she got bullied. She apparently back in 2025. Now, I don't know how it resurfaced though.
yeah, that's what I'm trying to figure out. Cause this a while ago.
How old were you at the time when this happened? Like,
to be honest, I don't know.
You don't know? It's all good. I just want to clear the air with like everyone, and I want you to tell your side about this.
Yeah, I don't know, brother. I really don't.
Here's where it gets strange. In this call, Anthony and Bandit talk like neither of them were really there when that girl died, which is a problem because it directly contradicts what Anthony told Wolfa in an earlier interview. In that interview, Anthony flatly admits that he was in the call and was a cause of her death, so why is he suddenly acting like he wasn't there at all? This is the moment it stopped feeling like a coincidence and started feeling like a plan. You see, Bandit and Anthony know people like me are going to come looking. It's not unreasonable to think that they prepared a cover story for this exact scenario. So I did what anyone would do. I confronted Anthony directly and told him that I had evidence that contradicted what he just told me. What I got back was a long message which I'm not going to read in full, but in the short version, he now claimed he was actually investigating Bandit and had no part in the girl's death at all. A complete reversal. Or really switched sides. I pushed a bit harder, and eventually that pressure got me a name. But the thing is that I've heard this name throughout this investigation, but never understood. Redacted. According to Anthony, Redacted was a close friend of Bandit, and is someone who knew more about what happened than he did. But like Bandit, Redacted disappeared after everything came out. So we can assume he was also in that call. Now we have 3 names connected to bandits. One is doing everything in his power to protect the others, and the other 2 are just apparently ghosts. Anthony went quiet not long after, which is no surprise. I mean, given how far he's already gone to protect Bandit. So I kept digging myself back into the VR chat member list, looking for anyone connected to the name Redacted. Out of roughly 500 members in Bandit's group, Redacted's name kept surfacing over and over. I found an account claiming to be his friend, and luckily they left their Discord in their bio. Just another dead end. But it wasn't over just yet. Because even though this Redacted guy is pretty much just gone and ceases to exist, there are over 500 members in this group, and maybe, just maybe, I can get into contact with one of them. So I clicked. Through all 500 members. Which would lead me to a conclusion. This whole time, I was trying to find bandits through Anthony, when in reality he's still active, just under a new name. But I want to bring some attention to the groups Bandit is a part of under this new name. Of course, we have the Bandit groups, but we have a new group called FTS that Bandit claims to own. Now this looks like a comm community just based off the banner and profile image, but after joining the Discord server linked in this group, it had nothing to do with the comm. In fact, it seemed as if Bandit was trying his best to escape the comm, because this server has nothing to do with it. If we scroll down, we can find an official links channel that leads us to a Kick streamer. We found Bandit. I joined his live to question him, and he didn't really seem too fond of my questions.
Yeah, I know I was Bandit. So only Bandit I know. It's not like I'm screaming or anything, right? Hey, Kuiper, how about you fuck off? Hop off my cock, will you?
Now look, despite this streamer banning me from his chat and avoiding talking to me, there are some problems with his really being Bandit. For starters, Bandit's Discord account is not in this server. In fact, his Discord server account doesn't even exist when I tried adding it. Yes, G59 Bandits does seem to have a connection with this server, but it's important to keep in mind that Bandit could have just owned the FTS invite link at one point for a comm server, and this guy could have just took that invite link if Bandit server was to ever get banned, which it probably did. And while it is weird that G59 Bandits seems to have some sort of connection to this random server, this could be one big coincidence. And in no way am I saying this guy is Bandit. In fact, I would be pretty surprised if it was, because Bandit's been trying to keep a low profile ever since the death. And now we're back at a standstill. I mean, at least we found Bandit and Redacted. Sure, we don't really know what they're up to today, and no matter how hard I try to get into contact with people related with them, or Bandit himself, no one seemed to be willing to talk to me. I mean, FTS could also just be another cover-up for Bandits to lead people like me to dead ends. Throughout this investigation into Bandits, there have been so many cover-ups that just lead to dead ends every single time. And it really seems as if Bandit is truly gone. If we scroll down in Bandit's bio, he claims to be hardware banned, but being hardware banned doesn't mean he can't prey on other platforms. I'm willing to bet that if I were to find G59 Bandits, the only way I'd be able to get in is if I committed a crime to prove myself. This is actually a tactic that 764 as well as pretty much every comm community uses. Still to this day, Anthony is the only person who is connected with Bandits, and unfortunately we don't have much information on the girl who they pressured into taking her life. And even though Senna is presumably dead, she was a part of a whole nother comm group, and Savannah was a victim that got out before anything got too bad. It honestly saddens me to say this, but Anthony and Bandit were successful at covering up their tracks. And while I wish I could give you guys a good ending on this one, I just can't. What I can confidently say though is that Bandits is still active to a degree today, and they have had multiple victims. And just like that, this case goes cold. No Bandit, no real server, just a bunch of fronts with expired links. I won't lie to you guys, this is the most frustrated I have ever been throughout any of my videos, or just investigations in general. Because I know they're still out there, I just can't reach them. My heart goes out to Senna's family, as well as Savannah. The reason I wanted to cover their story is because I understand what it's like to be in their shoes, and be exploited by someone who you trust. And that's why I'm telling you guys. Throughout this video, I have said over and over again that things are not always as they seem. And I want you to really sit with that for a second, because think about it. You just spent this entire video trusting me. You believed Savannah was dead. You believed Cena was in Bandits. You took everything I said at face value, because I presented it with confidence. And I was telling the truth. But what if I wasn't? What if this video is not even as it seems? You would never know. And that is exactly how these kids end up in these situations. Someone presents themselves with confidence, makes them feel seen, and they trust it. Because that's what people do. We trust what feels real. So please pay attention, because Bandit did the same thing I just did. He just had very different intentions. In today's world, there are so many children who have unrestricted access to the internet that get exposed to situations like the one within this video every day. It's so easy to take things for what they look like on the outside. Take Anthony, for example. I'm sure his Discord server has no clue that he was responsible for the death of a girl that he has gone out of his way to cover up. I make these videos so that I can try to bring some form of justice to these types of things that hurt our youth on a daily basis. And I am nowhere close to being done with this case. I'm going to continue my investigation on this, and if you have any information on G59 Bandits or are currently a part of it, please submit a tip here. Remember, things aren't always as they seem.